Hello everyone and welcome to a special episode of Sights on Sinnoh. We are here this week reviewing the Arceus Chronicles. That's right, that's how you say that word. With me is Manny.
How's it going?
Pretty good. I haven't watched a lot of Journeys, so this was an interesting dive back into Sinnoh and also the Pokemon anime for me. And I know you watched this originally when it came out before, or is this your first time watching it?
No, this was my first time because it was a Amazon Japan exclusive series. Yeah, so the only way you could watch it, I think, was through VPN. But I'm kind of curious because I haven't been caught up with the Journeys sub. So I'm kind of curious to see if this is canon into part of the anime, the current anime, or if it's just its own special thing.
Yeah, I think that's my question too, because it could it's very they aren't in the middle of something. It's just we're going to go and focus on this journey. But yeah, before we do that, if anyone is unfamiliar with what Arceus Chronicles are, this is a series, as Manny just explained, and I'm Will, by the way. I don't know if I said my name, but it's basically a series that was made to promote the Legends Arceus game, which came out earlier this year in 2022, and I believe debuted around the same time as that release. So it's a big it's a marketing thing. They've done this a lot with the movies, but there's nothing at the top of my head that comes to mind for TV specials at this scale, I guess, right?
Yeah, I don't believe so. Even in watching the subs, I don't believe they've done a separate series to promote a game. I know they've done promotions with codes for giveaways for the kids that watch through TV Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I think this is probably the first time they've done this.
Yeah, the closest thing I can think of is the Riolu 2-part episode, which was admittedly a bit forced in its placement. It didn't make a ton of sense in the Diamond and Pearl anime when it first released, but it's still okay and still a part of the larger series that's coming out at the time. But this is very much its own thing, and you don't really need to watch the rest, or vice versa, need to know this. As far as we know, I actually haven't finished the series yet.
Yeah, because did you watch the XY anime?
No, but I did hear from JM that there was a separate series following... Alan, yes.
That was, pretty much based on the Megas, and that's how they tied him into the series. But were the introduction of Megas during that period?
Yes, during
okay.
X and Y is when Megas first came to the game.
So then I guess that would count as...
X and Y, the series was still happening because the X and Y games came out, but there was never a Z or...
Oh, that's true.
Right, yeah. Right. But yeah, I see your point that there was an actual miniseries, which is kind of novel, at least at the time, and now we're getting one almost 10 years later, actually. And this series is, of course, based off the game, as I mentioned earlier, which I've seen the trailer for. I've played a bunch of Legends Arceus so far, and lately I've been doing a lot of the mass outbreaks. And I believe you were somewhere in the post game, you said?
Yeah, I haven't played it since the post game. I finished collecting all the plates, and that's pretty much where I left off.
Got it. So you haven't faced Arceus, I think?
I get too sidetracked. So
Did you complete your decks and catch Arceus, or?
No, I haven't done none of that.
Oh, okay.
So like I'm still missing like the genies. I think I'm missing some Pokemon that I haven't found yet. I did catch like Manaphy.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And I did do the shaman thing. And I think that's pretty much it. I don't remember if I caught the lake spirits. Pretty sure I did.
Yeah, I think that's part of the quest before it's part of the main story. So you probably did that there.
Yeah, but I haven't like touched my Switch at all.
What?
So
why not? What have you been up to?
It's because it's like I'm very bad at buying games. Like I see a game and I'm like, okay, immediately pre-order it, and I get it and I play it for like a week, and then for some reason I just don't go back to them unless they're like Pokemon games. Pokemon games are usually ones that I always finish. But I think during the post game, my sister wanted she got interested in Demon Slayer, so we did a watch through of that. So I think that's why I kind of never went back to the game, because I was focusing on her watch through, because like it was like her first anime. So I kind of
that's nice.
To me, it was kind of like a big deal. It's like, oh, like you're gonna be into anime, and this is probably like your first anime. So yeah, but I haven't like I forgot what game I bought. I bought the Lego Star Wars, and I played it with her, but we haven't gone back to it either. So I'm not good with games at all, which sucks because I'm tempted to get the new OLED Scarlet and Violet Switch. But I keep telling myself, like, are you really going to use it? Or are you just gonna put it in the box? So, yeah.
Fair. For me, I ordered the game from Costco, I think, and they don't send it out until launch day. So
okay.
I didn't get it for a while, and then I just ended up buying it from the eShop because I just really wanted to play it. So I think that worked out, actually. It's kind of nice to have a Pokemon game that I can just switch to and don't have to pull out the cartridge or anything. Pretty much everything else for me is on the cartridge, so that works out really nicely. And yeah, I've been catching a bunch of shinies, which is nice. I just really like using the different balls to capture new things.
So has the shiny like rate been easier with the new like mass outbreaks, or is it still?
It kind of depends. Like, what usually helps me is maximizing the Pokédex. So if you complete someone's entry completely, like get the full check marks on it, that will increase your rate even more. And the mass outbreaks typically help you because there's just more in one place. So if you beat them or catch them, they'll spawn more. And that makes it's kind of similar how to the mass outbreak was before, but you just have less control over it. Because if the storm stops, which is what's causing the mass outbreaks, they'll all disappear.
Okay. Yeah, see, I haven't done the new update either.
Yeah, I finished it. I thought there was going to be more to it, honestly. So I was a little disappointed there, but there's definitely enough to do to just go back to. And if you're a shiny hunter, definitely you can get a bunch out of that game for less time than you would in other games if you want to do the same stuff. But just to know, and I think it's going to come out in order, if you haven't finished the Diamond and Pearl anime, there'll be some spoilers as we review this series, but this is also kind of our chance to explain and give our thoughts on, do you need to watch the original Diamond and Pearl series before watching this one? And if you want to stick around for that, feel free to do so as well, but just be aware this happens after, and there's a ton of things in part 1 that mention that. And we're also planning on doing this 1 part / 1 week at a time, and there's 4 parts total in this series. Netflix, however, has made them all into one big episode, basically like a small movie that's an hour long. So if you don't know the part differences, we'll mention them as we go through. And you'll kind of see at the end of the episode which one it is. We're also gathering this from Bulbapedia if you want to go and look there for each part number. So, with all that out of the way, you ready to jump in?
Let's jump on in.
All right. So, what struck me immediately is that we are currently in a review of the Diamond and Pearl series in Canalave City. And this this starts off with our heroes going to this city. But before we do that, very much like all the other movies, it starts off with a narration from our classic narrator, as well as some random shots of Pokemon just like running around the wilderness. And it goes over that we're in the world of Pokemon, and Arceus has always been here before every Pokemon and every human. What did you think about that intro to Arceus and kind of a mini explanation of the world?
I kind of like it. It's always like one of the things that I like in terms of like the movies or like specials where they kind of like introduce you to the world of Pokemon. Especially when they show like different varieties. And it's, since I don't watch the dub, it's always kind of like refreshing to hear like the narration. So it always feels like, it always gives you that feeling of like, oh, this is something very, like the series is very important. It's not just a regular like episode.
Yeah, it gives it some gravitas.
Yeah, definitely. It makes it feel like big in a sense.
Right. I saw this and I couldn't help but think it felt a bit like a budget movie intro compared to the rest. Because you I gathered that mostly because you just see all these Pokemon moving in one direction and there's only like one of each. So it's like, why are they together? I wrote down random migration as this starts off. And at first I was like, oh, of course they're going to show every Pokemon that's in the game. And then immediately off the bat, there's a Camerupt in there. And neither Numel or Camerupt are in Legends Arceus.
This is true.
But all the Pokemon I believe that are in there are Gen 1 through 4 Pokemon. So they did stick to that. So
yeah, I didn't like really connect the dots until like you said it. I was like, oh, that's true. There's Gen 1 through 4.
Yeah, and
watching it, like it didn't really click in my head. Like, oh, this is just Gen 1 through 4. I thought it was just like, oh, they're just showing the Pokemon.
Yeah, so I kind of have questions about that, but and they'll come up in a little bit as we move along into the actual story, which again starts off with our characters landing in Canalave City of Go and Ash, literally just running off the boat towards the city into what's supposed to be a recreation of the town in Legends Arceus, because there is a Sinnoh festival happening. And did you catch the cameo in the background as they're walking through this area?
I did not. Who cameoed?
Ooh, there was the Magikarp salesman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know how I missed him.
He hasn't appeared for... Well, I think he made an appearance in Journeys, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's made an appearance.
Because for the longest time, his last appearance was in Diamond and Pearl. The B Button League episode, I believe. So it was kind of neat to see some history acknowledged there. And as they're just walking around, they're there for research. And right off the bat, what did you think about this being a mission that they've received from Professor Cerise as they do their Pokemon Research Fellow stuff?
They never specified what it was, right?
Not really. As far as I gathered, they were just there to do research, but it was very vague.
Yeah, because I think they weren't even aware of the festival until someone tells them.
Well, I think they were aware was happening. I just don't think they had a goal of what they were supposed to do there. Because they're like racing down towards there, and
I guess this is their way of like saying it's canon because they're doing research.
Right.
But not specifically stating what the research is.
Yeah.
Because by the time they get there, like, you kind of forget.
Right.
That they were there to do research. Unless the specific research was given to them by someone who appears later.
Yeah, we just get narration that says Ash and Go are investigating the legends surrounding Arceus. So they travel to Canalave City in Sinnoh. They're here in the role as research fellows to investigate the way people of Sinnoh lived in a distant past. And that's basically it. There is, I think, an implication that they might be going to the Canalave Library, which you see for a second as they're running.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Yeah, and that's also my question, is why is this festival happening in Canalave? Well, there is, I think, some justifiable reason. Canalave has the library, so it maybe has a lot of research located there and condensed. But the literal town that it's based, that we see here in the game... Oh, I was mistaken before. It's Jubilife Village in Legends Arceus. So you would think that maybe they would recreate it there?
That's true. Unless they just... Yeah, you see, I can't think of a reason. Maybe I guess it was because the library is there.
Yeah, it could be like that's...
But that's still like not really answered as to why that specific location was chosen.
Right. I would think it would be either Jubilife or Celestic Town. Like, either of them kind of seem like a better place for it. But maybe if we really dig into it, Canalave just has a lot of funding for history and like cultural events because of the library. So they did it there, but it's just an odd choice given how much we know about this in the games. And like specifically, Canalave City isn't really formed in the games either.
Yeah. Maybe it's just they decided that specific city, but all of Sinnoh is actually doing this festival.
That's true. Another thing, again, if we're looking way too deep into it, could be Jubilife is a big metropolitan area that just doesn't have space for it, and Canalave is the closest city that can accommodate this or something.
Yeah, that could probably be it.
So that's as much as I can tell. It is a little weird in the games that Jubilife is the first village or first city of Sinnoh, because Canalave is actually the one that's closest to the ocean. So it could also be that or something. I don't know. Maybe Jubilife Village eventually became Canalave City, and Jubilife Village just... like, they just made a new Jubilife City separately. So, I don't know. Could be a number of reasons. Just had me thinking for a while. But after that, they run into Dawn, of course, who is wearing a very specific outfit from the game. Were you able to recognize it?
Yes, this is the Garchomp one.
Nice! Yeah, I had to look it up. I was like...
and I knew it because... I think the Growlithe one was one of the pre-order bonuses. And then I remembered Garchomp was also a pre-order bonus.
Oh, okay.
So just by looking at the color palette, I had to figure out, I was like, is it the Growlithe or is it the Garchomp?
Right, yeah. I thought Growlithe too at first, and then I had to go and look up all the outfits and just kind of scroll through and like, oh, that one's it.
Yeah, and I was waiting for them to pull out like the Baneful mask, but nobody had it.
Oh yeah, that'd be nice. So yeah, Dawn's there. She's wearing this, and she tells them oh yeah, I borrowed these clothes. And I'm like, did you just not want to say I rented this outfit or something?
Would she have rented it?
Well, that's my assumption. It's like you're going to a historical festival, you want to like dress the part or something, so you like rent it. But the way she just kept saying borrowed was really weird to me, so that's why I'm mentioning it.
Considering she said she borrowed it and who she got it from, I kind of believe that it was borrowed.
Okay. Well, the thing is, then she's like, how about you guys borrow clothes? And I'm like, what? Like, who? What? Where's this coming from? Like, I assumed that she rented the clothes from the organization that's putting this event on. And like anyone can do it. It's not just like, oh, I have to know this character to borrow clothes from them for this event.
Yeah, I guess they just didn't want to use the word rent.
Yeah.
Bought. I just borrowed it.
Right. Can't make mention to anything that's money related in the show.
Yeah.
But then she's like, okay, well, let's go and get the clothes. And we run over to a hut that has like a curtain in it. And she pulls it back and we see Cynthia just like standing there. And I do like she has the Garchomp kimono, but I kind of wish Dawn had something else.
Well, she probably borrowed it because Cynthia's Pokemon is Garchomp.
Right, and I apparently she just bought 3 kid sizes also.
Unless like she had a whole mess of them like made in case people wanted that specific.
Right, because the room that
kimono?
they take them to is like a historical area. There's a bunch of pottery and there's some like mannequins with other clothes on them also. I think it's a historical exhibit, and that's where like the Pokemon go and find things, and then everyone dresses up. How do you feel about this introduction of Cynthia in this series?
It was okay. I mean, like, if you've seen Journeys, she's kind of always there. So it's not... she kind of loses her luster. Is that the word?
Sure.
So, because she's pretty much, like, in a lot of episodes. But I kind of have to give props to her voice actor, because she's the same voice actor as Dawn's.
Right.
So, she was probably doing double duty that entire series. But I do wonder if like she's recorded her lines separate from her characters or like at the same time. That would probably be difficult, wouldn't it? Like to go from Dawn to I already forgot her name.
Cynthia?
To Cynthia. Like right off the bat.
Oh no, you're gonna get canceled now.
I know.
Yeah, I also thought it was kind of weird. Like it felt less important that she was just like, oh hi. Like every time it feels like that she usually has an impact when she's on the screen, but it's been diluted a little bit.
Yeah, she definitely always has an impact, and this kind of felt a little less.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, she's just standing there like, oh.
Yeah, like what?
Hey, what are you doing here?
Like, you're the champion. Like, every other time we've seen her in the anime for Diamond and Pearl, there's always been, like, crowds of people or, like, a bunch of important figures around her. I think she's just like, oh, hi. I have a historical exhibit. That's all right. We'll get back to them in a second, because then we have a hard cut to the middle of a volcano. What did you think about this transition?
I definitely wasn't expecting that this would be a thing, because like for me, I kind of thought like, oh, okay, there's probably just gonna be a focus on just the kids,
and
then learning about it. like the whole history, which I again, like I was like kind of bummed that they also both got Garchomp kimonos.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely like when it went to this volcano, I was like, oh, okay, so what's gonna happen here?
Right. It was like, oh, there's conflict maybe. It definitely surprised me as well. I had expectations that was more about like, let's go explore the history of Sinnoh, and it would be kind of whimsical. And then we get to this, and it's like, oh, okay, this is happening, I guess. And what's happening is Heatran, the legendary Pokemon, is being ambushed by Team Galactic as some grunts along with their commander Saturn. And there's a very obvious pause where Saturn like has the art, like, I don't know what to call it. It's like an art smear thing where they change the scene a bit. It's like what they do a lot at the end of episodes.
Like they give it like a kind of like a sketchish, right?
Yeah, like a sketch.
Yeah.
And
I guess it was just used like for the impact of like, oh, he's here, like he just returned.
Well, this is actually where I'm going to jump to our edits for the episode, dub edits to be specific. One of them says that the Japanese text depicting the names of Canalave City and the Team Galactic commanders are edited out. So, what that means is that when they do this sketch shot, what was there in the original was the name of the commander. And to me, that makes way more sense, because it's just very random otherwise. It's like, impact, but like, what?
Yeah, and also like for kids who have like watching this and don't know anything about the history of Diamond and Pearl, it would also be like a good thing for like them to know who this is.
Yeah, so that's why it's weird they didn't like make an English version.
Yeah,
like they very
forgot what his name was.
Right, like and you've never played the original Sinnoh games.
No, I never played the games. No.
So there's a ton of people that are just like, what? Like, am I supposed to feel or am I supposed to learn something from this? Which makes sense in the original, but I think loses that intention here. And to me, like, if it was like a louder sound effect or something, maybe that would have helped. But it was very kind of like, oh, look, this guy's important, I guess. But then it keeps going. It's not like long enough to have a really good impact, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But what does have an impact is the Team Galactic grunts sending out Golbat to try and confuse the Heatran. I think it hits him either with Screech or Supersonic. But then Heatran climbs up a wall and takes him out with Stone Edge, to which Saturn sends out his Toxicroak to use Dig, and Dig is 4 times effective against Heatran, so really good choice there. And then he uses a Dusk Ball to catch it.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I didn't expect it.
Yeah, same.
I saw him pop it out, and I was like, ooh, a Dusk Ball.
So, this is also something that I thought was interesting. Normally, when Team Rocket or Team Galactic does stuff like this, or like when they're trying to like take over stuff, they don't use Pokeballs to catch things. They usually like use containers or nets or something.
Yeah.
So I always thought that was interesting that they very clearly like, no, let's just cut to the chase and use a ball. And they use a really good ball for it because Dusk Balls are way more effective in caves.
Yes. And was his Krogong still shiny? Or was it the regular?
His Toxicroak?
Yeah. Oh, it's Krogan. Yes, it's Toxic Krogan.
Yep, it was still that weird pale blue where it's almost shiny. Like the only difference is the sac on its throat is usually a different color. But basically shiny, yeah. So they've really stuck to that in the show. And then the scene ends by him radioing back to G2, letting them know that their capture is complete. G2, of course, being Commander Mars. And we get a cut back to a shiny rainbow plate-like thing back at their base. What did you think when you saw that?
I thought it was like a crystal. I was like, whoa, what could they use this crystal for? I was like, I wasn't pretty sure because it does have like this specific shape and it's multicolored. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was either like a crystal or like a sort of prism that they were, I guess, going. Well, what I had assumed was it was just something that they were going to use for a machine. Mm-hmm. That's what I assumed because I just saw it. I was like, oh, okay, they're probably working on like a machine or something, and the heat run was just for them to catch. But I didn't know what that specific reason for the heat run was, other than them just wanting to catch it.
Yeah, I was like, what is this? It took me a second, and immediately I was like, is this the Jewel of Life?
Okay.
And for those of you who don't know, there is a Pokemon movie called Arceus and the Jewel of Life, which is all about the Arceus plates, basically. And I was like, are we referencing this movie? And we'll talk more about it as we continue in a bit. But that was like the weirdest thing for me. Is like, you're doing a lot here without explaining as much as you should be. I don't know how it's going to pay off yet, so I don't want to critique it too much. But I'm very skeptical about the payoff of this. And one other thing before we move on here from Team Galactic. While I do like the Dust Ball, it did feel a little too easy to me how they caught Heatran.
Yeah, because even I was shocked. Like, wow, he caught it? Like,
right? It was just like one Dust Ball.
Like, it wasn't something I expected.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess he got a bit of ghost magic. And just caught it with one throw.
If it goes in your region, your rates of catch go way up.
Go up, way up.
That's funny. So that's it for that stuff. Let's move on back to our heroes, who are exploring the historical exhibit with Cynthia. And it's a cool room, honestly.
It is, but I'm kind of bummed.
Mm-hmm.
Because of what they show. Because... Oh, and we'll get into that right now.
Yeah, it's like a room that has Mount Cornet model in the middle and then a bunch of paintings on the side. One of them is what we see in the trailer for a second, which is all these Hisuian forms, including evolutions such as Weirdeer, Basque Legion. And then it like has a weird moment where it goes from the paint style to the anime style. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what? When I first saw the trailer, I assumed those things were going to be like the normal Pokemon in current day dressed up as their old counterparts. So I was like, what was the point? Like, then we cut back to the point of view of the heroes, and it's not like they actually saw the painting move. It's still there.
Yeah. So the reason I was bummed was because they had advertised it as them going back in time to Hisui itself. But but that didn't happen. So I was kind of hyped because I was like, oh, okay, it's not gonna be canon. They're gonna be in Hisui somehow because they're gonna do it like in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But that was their only appearance, so I'm kind of bummed because ever since they showed Basculegion, like the first thing that came to my mind was like, I need to see that in the anime somehow, and that's the only way we saw it. So
kind of. I also had like that at the back of my mind. Is like, is this going to be a time travel story?
Yeah, because I think that's how they had advertised it for the Amazon Japanese release, which is why I was super hyped about it.
Right, it's like, oh, they're going to actually go back and do it. But then when they saw the Netflix release and Go says, oh, they recreated the town, I was like, oh, maybe they're not going to do that. So my expectations were a little less tied to a time travel story.
Yeah. But Pikachu's impressions are always spot on.
What was that?
I said Pikachu's impressions are always spot on.
Yeah, there is a little callback of Pikachu doing its impressions here, which it's famously done throughout the series. So that was kind of cool. I do wish it had more recognition from, like, the Hisuian forms had more recognition from everyone else, though. And then Ash asks, how did people used to catch Pokemon back in the day? And Cynthia pulls out the ancient Pokeballs that we have in the games.
Yeah, so they pretty much like gloss over the Pokemon. Like nobody questions. Mm-hmm. It's like, what? Like Standler has an evolution? Like why can't he do that now?
Like Go is here. How is he not like just filled with a million questions?
Yeah, because I think all he says was like, "Oh, I want to catch them." That's pretty much what he says. He doesn't, which is weird for him because usually he's always like getting information with his phone, like recording data, and I don't think he does any of that.
Yeah, it takes him a while, and honestly, I thought he would be the most excited out of everyone here about this stuff. But everyone's very kind of neutral. Like, there isn't a huge spectrum of emotion here, which is kind of odd. But then Cynthia's like, yeah, do you want to do a catching contest? And I was like, what? Okay. And then they go to this area that Go literally says, it reminds me of Cerise Park. And I was just like, what's the difference? It's literally the same location.
Yeah. I guess they had like a biome, but they just don't say.
Yeah, I'm like, is this biome part of Canalave? Like, what? Is this always here? Like, I had so many questions, and I was just annoyed because they literally call out the fact that this background piece and the setting looks almost exactly like the place that they've been throughout this whole series. Like, it doesn't seem, at least, to be like a recreation of an old area in Sinnoh or something. There's just like random Sinnoh Pokemon, which is nice, but like you're already in the Sinnoh region. It's not like it would be special. But the only thing that is special, I guess, is when Cynthia is like, "Come out, everyone," and then we see 3 Pokemon pop out. But were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it reminds me of where Go and Ash keep their Pokemon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lab. That's exactly what Cerise Park is.
Yeah. So that's what I thought was like. Oh, it's just like a little, like, biodome where they have those Pokemon. Right.
And 3 of the Pokemon here are Oshawott, Cyndaquil, and Rowlet, of course. And immediately, I do like that Go calls out the observation here.
Yeah, they're like, well, why these 3 specific ones?
Right, and specifically saying, hey, these are all from different regions. Yeah, so I really like that. And then they ask Cynthia what's going on, and she's like, oh yeah, it's in the historical record that these Pokemon were brought here from other regions originally. And she has like a painting or something from back then. And they are going to help her with the catching contest. So, again, I'm like, okay, are these your Pokemon? Like, who's running this exhibit? Is it theirs? Is the catching contest only for the people that are your friends, Cynthia? Or is this like part of the festivities? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's kind of like, I assume. I guess like everybody who goes to that specific exhibit gets to play the game. But like they never mention Hisui. They just call it Ancient Sinnoh. Which kind of like bugged me a bit. But yeah, I was kind of curious to see like, okay, how are they gonna do the catching, because like the Pokeballs have like a lock on them. So I was like, okay, are they just gonna throw it and they're gonna get chucked? Like they're gonna get hit? Or do they specifically have to do it themselves, unlatch it and throw it?
Yeah, that was one thing that bothered me too, is that Cynthia didn't really explain like, oh, this is how you use the balls and it's different than modern balls. They just kind of talk about the design being different and that it's wooden. Yeah. But they don't really talk about like how to utilize it in any way that's different from other balls.
Yeah, which is funny because like when they make that mention like, oh, it's made out of wood, like I said out loud specifically, oh, it's made out of acorns specifically.
Oh right, apricorns.
There you go, apricorns. Like right when they say, oh, it's made out of wood, like I don't know why, I just like replied back to the characters like, made out of apricorns specifically.
I didn't even think about that, but that's so weird. Like, Ash has literally seen this happen because he was in Johto and Kurt did that. But no one acknowledges apricorns. Huh. Alright. Interesting. That bothers me more now that you mention it. Okay, and then the catching contest starts, and Cynthia says if you do it within 3 minutes or something like that, I'll give you each a prize, and then they all get super competitive about it. But not a lot really happens. Like, Dawn goes after Oshawott, Ash goes after Rowlet, and then Go goes after Cyndaquil, which is like, alright, yeah, I guess that makes sense, mostly because Piplup and Oshawott, Ash's Oshawott specifically, didn't get along before, and immediately this Oshawott does not get along.
Does not get along with him.
So, I guess...
Wasn't there, like, another Piplup that didn't get along with Ash's as well? Oshawott?
No, though
like,
I do think there was an episode...
Like a flirtatious Piplup? Like they were fighting over a Pokemon?
No, I think it was still Dawn's Piplup.
Oh, was it Dawn's? Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was an episode in Journeys where a random Piplup is fighting with a random Krogunk. But it's a filler episode in Snowpoint City, I think. But basically, the only minor cool thing I can point out here from this segment is that Piplup uses Drill Peck to cut through grass.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a new move for Piplup. It usually just knows Peck. So this was kind of neat. And I guess it was kind of cool that Oshawott uses its scalp to block it, but that's literally the most interesting part of this thing. Except for the fact, I guess at the very end, it shows them physically unlocking the Pokeball before throwing it. But again, that brings up the question, who did they just figure it out on their own, or did Cynthia just tell them off screen? Because it's never really explicitly mentioned.
It's just the power of anime.
Yeah, right. They just know immediately. And then they all just somehow throw their balls at the same time and catch their designated mons. And we get the smoke effect, which Go does mention, I think, right?
Yeah, they mention it because they acknowledge, like, they see the smoke. And I really liked, like, the catching animation, because you see, like, a little light force when the ball closes before the smoke comes out.
Right. It makes it very clear that it's not a regular Pokeball, and it matches a lot of what you see in the game.
Yeah.
So that's definitely cool. And then they bring out their Pokemon, and it kind of has a smoke effect too when they come out. Very subtle. But you do see the blue aura kind of have a smoky texture to it.
Yeah. It was cool to see.
Yeah, that was nice. And Ashwa and Piplup suddenly really like each other.
Yeah, that was funny. Because then Don notices it too. It's like, when did these two suddenly get along?
Right. Like they're just fighting. And then they're all like, all right, what's the prize? And Cynthia pulls out 3 massive books about the legends of Sinnoh.
What did you think they would be? Like, before, like, when she had mentioned them first, before she revealed that they were the books, like, did you have a guess what the possible prizes could have been?
I was thinking so many things besides that. Let me go down the list. My first thing was, maybe she'll give him a Hisuian Pokédex.
Oh, okay.
Like, here's an ancient replica of like the first Pokédex.
Yeah.
Because all of them are Pokédex holders. And it's like, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, and it would help with their research.
Right. Like, they can be like, this is great. This helps us, like, understand the history of the decks and how people have, like, developed with Pokemon. My second one would have been the flute. The Azure flute. And be like, cool, like historical musical instrument. Next idea would have been either like a jet ball or a gigaton ball. One of the balls that is exclusive to Legends Arceus.
Yeah, huh? They should have made cameos, those Pokeballs.
Right? Like, that'd be cool. It's like, here's another history, and you just use the balls. So it's like, now you can use these. And, like, they work on any Pokemon. So...
Yeah. Because she had told him, like, you only get one chance to do that.
Right. Like, she was very specific about that. So I was like, maybe... it would be cool if you get, like, a replica. Like, it doesn't have to be a working jet ball or gigaton ball or something. It would be cool, though. But it's like, here's a replica because you're a trader and this is, like, a history thing. And you just got to experience what it's like to use an ancient Pokeball. So, those were mine. Did you have any specific predictions?
The only thing that, like, came to my mind were the little, like, masks that you unlock in the game. 'Cause you know how they have, like, the Pikachu one, the Shinx one.
Yeah.
They had, like, a little Baniri one. Yeah, I thought maybe that would be one of the prizes. I don't know why, like, the first thing was, like, she's gonna say they get to keep the Pokemon. I don't know why that was, like, the first thing I thought about immediately. Mm-hmm. I was like, it would make sense. They caught them. Of course they're gonna keep them.
Right.
But I don't know why that was, like, for me, that was like, that's the prize. But I think that was pretty much it. Just like those little face masks. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the books. Yay, books. Because...
yeah, and I'm, like, not personally against them. It's just, you're doing a Legends Arceus special. Like, give them something that's related to that. And And that would be the most valuable thing. But you give them books that have nothing to do with anything. Like, it's so odd to me. And also, I was asking, who wrote the books? Are they by Cynthia? Like, is it like a big deal that she's giving them to them? To our heroes? Because it doesn't seem like it's a very exclusive prize. Like, it's not, they just look like a mass published book that anyone can buy, so it doesn't make a lot of sense that they're like, oh, this is the big prize for this thing.
Yeah. I wonder, like, what other winners of this game would think of the book.
Yeah. Again, it's like, are there other winners? Do other people play this? And we literally see no one else. So, yeah. I hope they get better prizes than this. That's pretty much it for this moment, though. Go's the only one excited about this, which is like, alright, fine, that makes sense. And then we go back to the Team Galactic headquarters, where Mars turns around from working on her computer, and we get that sketch. And then we look at Saturn, and we get that sketch again. And in comes walking in Saturn, holding the dust ball with Heatran, and everyone's like, okay, we can get started, cool. Mars's voice actor did come back. I'm not entirely sure about Saturn, but I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure that Saturn's voice actor didn't come back, but I'm not sure if Jupiter's did. I couldn't really remember.
I do know that, like, he was a 4Kids actor, because when I heard him, I was like,
oh, he sounds familiar?
Voice. Yeah, it's like, I know that voice. That has to be a 4Kids actor.
He does remind me of
at first I thought it was like Neji from Naruto, but then after hearing his voice, like, no, that's not him. I don't know his name, but he was like, the role I remember him more for is in Yu-Gi-Oh! He plays a Yu-Gi-Oh! Character.
Oh, okay. I was thinking he was James's voice actor.
Which James?
From Team Rocket?
He did sound a bit like him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
let me look it up.
At first I thought, like, is that James? But then I was like, sounds like Neji. But then hearing his voice, like, I know it sounds familiar.
He might be the same one, actually. It doesn't look like anyone else is listed as having played Saturn in the English dub. Huh. He just sounded very soft in comparison to what I remember him. Okay, that's interesting. Just for the sake of time, we'll skip over Jupiter. Maybe we'll cover it next time. But Jupiter says, we will now begin the Heatran experiment. Which is like, oh, okay, there's a specific reason for this Pokemon. What is it? Everyone's standing by. There's a grunt saying we're commencing vibrations of this crystal. And it starts to glow a little bit more. And Saturn's like, alright, Heatran, lend me your power. So it comes out. And it uses Magma Storm, which is its signature move. And it just, like, goes full blaze on this crystal, which starts sparking. There's like energy meters going out of control, and someone says that it's the first step in the creation of a brand new world for Team Galactic. But then Jupiter says we actually need more power than this to open the dimensional portal. So this is like, oh, okay, so this is like, they need power. They're trying to open the dimensional portal. And then someone says, we've gone past critical levels. And that's where things sort of get out of control. Like, there's a big flash of light. And there's like a big burst of energy that comes out from the base. And you see like wild Pokemon affected. What did you think about all this?
So they named it what it was, right?
Okay, the name of it is the Flame Plate. And it doubles, according to them, it doubles Arceus's power.
Yeah, so my question, like, when I had heard it was, okay, because I had remember that, the plates is where I left off. And I was like, that's a plate? Like, to me, again, it was like a prism or a crystal.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay. So, not knowing what it would actually look like in anime form. Mm-hmm. That was my first question. But my second one was, how did they get it?
Yeah. Same.
Because, like, is there, like in terms of, like, the games, do Arceus's plates, like, play a factor in Diamond and Pearl? The games, or...
So, in the games, you find them in the underground or in different places throughout Sinnoh. And they're basically just items that enhance a specific type of move. So, like, the Flame Plate would be something that you can give someone as a held item, and it'll increase their fire type moves.
Oh, okay.
So, and they're usually very distinct in how they're portrayed, where it's like, it's red, or it's like, it's blue or something like that for water. Yeah. And what's weird about it is that in the Legends Arceus game, they're like square/rectangular. And then in the anime, when you see the Jewel of Life, they're kind of in the shape of what we see here, but they're way smaller. So that's why I was like, the Flame Plate is just one of many. Like, if you had all of them and for some reason it combined to look like this, I would be more impressed. But right now I'm just kind of confused.
Yeah.
Like, you have this big glowy thing, it's all these colors, it's huge. And then the name reveal is just, it's one of 17-ish, 18, I think, plates, because there's one for each type.
Yeah, and they just say it, like, quickly, like... If you didn't hear it, like, you like, if you didn't, like, weren't paying attention, it just passed by. Yeah. So they kind of made it feel like it wasn't as important for some reason.
I had to replay that moment, like, 3 times to catch it.
No, yeah, I heard it right away, so I was like, oh, okay, it's a plate. But yeah, like, the aftershock of, like, when it uses its what was it called, the move that he trying to use? Magnastorm. So due to, like, the backlash of it, like, Pokemon got affected.
So my understanding is that the energy of the plate had, like, a negative impact on Pokemon, which we're going to see in a second. But it was kind of weird to me that it came from Magma Storm and a Flame Plate of all things.
Yeah. I guess they just needed like a plot device.
Yeah.
For why it would be, because it kind of, like, it wouldn't make sense, right?
Yeah, to me it would make more sense that you need a legendary fire type and you give it the Flame Plate to try and destroy something. But here it's attacking the Flame Plate itself, which doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't understand how this is supposed to be affecting the dimensional barrier that they mentioned. But this does cause everyone's Pokemon in the area to kind of be alerted to something. So Ash and friends come outside, and Grookey, Pikachu, and Piplup all kind of recoil from the effects of this energy that we see. And they're all like, oh, we sent something. Pikachu points towards Mount Coronet? ? And they're like, something doesn't seem right. Let's go see. Okay, And then they go running off. And then we cut to the mountain. then we get a shot of Arceus just chilling in this weird purple space before it roars, and then all the Lake Guardians come out to like
technically
check out what's going on.
Yeah, technically it sang because it's a whale's cry.
Oh, that's funny. I said roar because that's what the subtitles say.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
but I kind of like yours better, the fact that it's singing like a whale.
Yeah, they use a whale's cry for that.
That makes more sense, honestly. It's more peaceful and also sad if it's a whale cry than it's a roar.
Yeah, they didn't use any Star Wars sounds this time.
Oh, good. So, what do you think about...
I think there is like a small roar at the beginning.
Oh, that might be it. Okay. But what do you think about this being the way that it summoned the Lake Guardians?
I don't know, because it's like it could have easily interfered, right? Like it itself.
That's what I'm thinking also, is like, how much power does it have? Why is it calling the Lake Guardians? They come to it and then they all teleport away. And then we cut back to Team Galactic where the flame plate is like in a tornado of fire before it dissipates. And then Mars is like, that's the first step in our experiment to doing this project thing. And then Jupiter says, oh yeah, the energy produced has affected the dimensional barrier. And everyone's like, aha, yes, we can open the door to Master Cyrus. And then we cut back outside. So what did you think about that detail?
I mean, I was intrigued, but for some reason, like, not a lot of it stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like excited, like, to hear what their specific goal was, because they kind of don't allude to it at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just like wondering, like, okay, like, what do they need the heat return for? Like, why did they have the plate?
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of excited because I was like, ooh, if they bring him back and it's still Goku's voice actor who voices him, I will wave my arms up in the air.
Wait, is it the same voice actor, Cyrus?
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, back in the anime, the original Diamond and Pearl anime, they used him to voice Cyrus.
That's so funny. JM and I had such a long discussion about him, and neither of us, I think, realized it was Sean Schemmel.
Yeah, because I remember when you guys recorded that episode, I told you guys, like, do you know who because like I said it like in a way that was like, do you guys not know the importance of who his voice actor is?
I forgot. I think you might have mentioned it. Yeah,
because JM had told me, like, oh yeah, I know, but like I never watched that series, so I was like, okay, well, I mean, as long as you guys know who it is.
That's funny. That explains why he's so good also.
Yeah,
that's great. Okay, I like this. This is actually where part 1 ends also, but before there, one thing I like to call out, which is featured more in the second part, is that in the walls of the base, you can see stone carvings of Cyrus up on the wall.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh, that's cool. They don't, like, make it super obvious, but if you know, you know. So I did appreciate that they weren't super, like, in your face about it. And they will be maybe a bit more in part 2, but we'll get to that next time. So, anything else we should discuss before our ratings?
Predictions. What do you think? Because I've seen the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, because my thing is I didn't know that it was all put together.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. What do you think is gonna happen?
I've seen a little bit of the next part, just like the first minute or two, because I didn't realize this was the cutoff. But as for long-term things, I'm kind of torn. I'm not sure if they're going to bring back Dialga and Palkia, because they were a big part of it, and I don't want them to, but at the same time, it's really weird if you just have Arceus by itself. Like, even in the movie, all of the creation trio came in of Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina. Or at least the Sinnoh legendaries, I mean. I think they're gonna go back to Spear Pillar. Because that's where I believe they last saw Cyrus. So I think that's where they would go to see if they can open a gateway and get him back. And they've shown Cynthia a lot in this episode. And I feel like she should, but she won't come back to help them. Because the way they show her does not seem like she's very interested in doing anything other than running this historical exhibit. Like, she doesn't even come out of, like, the room when this energy thing happens. Are there any specific predictions you want me to make or questions in regards to the future?
I just want to, like, your general.
Okay. Yeah. Like, it's a weird intro. Like, I mean, this is going more to my rating, I guess, but as much as I like the Diamond and Pearl anime, as the fact that we're doing this podcast probably shows, I don't know if this was the best approach to trying to display the game fully, because I kind of didn't expect Team Galactic until I saw the newest trailer for Netflix, and they are technically a part of the Legends Arceus game in a indirect way, but I don't know if they fit well into talking about the mythology or the concepts behind the game. Right now, what they're doing with them is literally tying back to the original series, Diamond and Pearl.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're making weird little choices, like with Heatran. So, in Diamond and Pearl, Team Galactic has nothing to do with the post-game. But in Platinum, Charon has a whole scheme to try and steal Heatran. Or at least the stone, the Magma Stone that Heatran is associated with. And Charon isn't even in this. He makes he doesn't appear in it at all as a character, and he's the main one who's even connected to Heatran, and he's the commander that wasn't in Diamond and Pearl originally, but then got added in Platinum. So there's a lot of these elements that I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I'm very confused at where it's headed. And I don't think they're paying off enough to make this the Legends the Legends Arceus special, as much as they're trying to also tie up or do like an epilogue to Diamond and Pearl. And I wish it was one or the other. Not what we're getting so far with part 1. So I think my rating is gonna be like a 5.
Yeah. Just based on rating this as its own episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd go with a 5 too, because it's pretty much just like introducing what the problem is that our main characters are gonna face probably in like the other 4 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a slow build in a sense. But like, let's say you watched this. Well, you did, right? 'Cause you watched this as a separate thing. But like, let's say this was like a weekly release. So like, you only caught one episode 1 week. Would this specific episode be enough to entice you as a viewer to come back for the week after to watch the rest of the episodes?
Oh, honestly, probably not the way it ended. If it had gone on for like a minute or two longer, maybe. But the way it ends here was really weird.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, because, I mean, it probably would have been enough for me to come back. So the week after. But yeah, just like with you, like in this first episode, there wasn't really much of a tie-in to the game. Other than like that small cameo by the 4 Hisuian variants and then the 3 starters that were just there and not really mentioned after. So yeah, definitely wasn't like a big tie-in with the game as like the advertisement made it seem like it was gonna be.
I think that's the biggest thing, is the advertising for this gave me a different impression and expectation, and then it was slightly softened by the Netflix one. But now I kind of wish it was more like the original expectations, that was going to be just time travel and you don't have to think about anything about the present or like the implications immediately, at least. You can just focus on the story.
Yeah, because the original like trailer never showed anything about Team Galactic. It was just like, oh, Ash and Dawn and Go are gonna travel back in time.
Right.
But they didn't even do that, in a sense.
Yeah, they haven't really committed, and that's the weird part for me. So, yeah, we're leaving it at 5. Again, this is just our first impressions. They could change wildly, maybe, as we go on. But if you want to stick around and check out part 2, feel free to subscribe below to the channel, and you'll catch it next time when that drops. Again, we're watching the Legends Arceus Chronicles, or the Arceus Chronicles, not the Legends Arceus Chronicles, over on Netflix, where it just debuted last Friday, so pretty fresh on our minds. And yeah, any final thoughts, Manny?
Just excited to see what you think of the rest of the series. Because I'm usually like don't notice much like of the like non-consistent parts of like the shows until like I come here and you like make them more.
I ruin it all.
No, you don't ruin it, but it's like, oh yeah, like I notice it, but I don't like pay attention to it until like you mention it. So it's like, oh okay, so it's so yeah, just very curious to see like what you think. I hope you do enjoy it, and if you don't, then I guess ask Netflix for your money back. I don't know.
Yeah, I did get Netflix just for this. To
really?
be transparent, yeah.
No
so
way.
I'm gonna watch this and then some other series that I've been meaning to, but Netflix, oh boy. But yeah, I've been Will,
and my name is Manny.
We're both a little rusty there.
Yeah.
And yeah, you've been listening to Sights on Sinnoh, and it does feel good to be back in the Sinnoh region, I will say that. And you know, next time, as far as I'm aware, we could be saying hello from Hisui, so stick around and find out. And again, we'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the comments below. So until then, have a good one.
Bye.